We all are only 1 degree removed from knowing someone who is being impacted by workplace violence or some form of online exploitation. This issue filters into employee wellness, impacting engagement at work. Let's bridge this gap by bringing awareness and education to these pressing issues and shield the vulnerable.
Everybody, welcome back to Shield the Vulnerable, Untold Stories, the podcast where we talk about real-world threats and the strategies that actually work to protect people and workplaces. And this is a special podcast here today. We're filming this through our company, Pursuit Pathways, to talk about this one here today. And I want to pull back the curtain on something that needs to be said. Active threats and active shooters are very real. They are very real. And today I'm going to challenge you, whether you're here as an individual, whether you're here as an organizational leader, to not fall into the reactionary model where we will fix a problem when it happens. By then, it's far too late. Today, I challenge you to be proactive and show your community, your organization, your school, your workplace, that you are proactive on this task when it comes to this. And when we talk about active threats, we're not just talking about shooters. You need to train and prepare for all types of threats. And that's what we're going to dive into here today. Often immediately, we think of active shooters and we think of schools. But the reality is that it's something that happens everywhere. It happens in public spaces. It's happened in Las Vegas at the concert. It's happened at Pulse nightclub in Orlando. Think of things like New Orleans in January of 2025 or the Boston Marathon. Okay, things that didn't involve a shooter but still included a threat where somebody could be harmed. In the healthcare world, we've got Tulsa Medical Offices, Bronx Lebanon Hospital, Mercy Hospital in Chicago. Schools, we all know the major ones, everything from Columbine and everything that ever happened before that, all the way up to more recently, and big ones like Virginia Tech. These are threats that schools face every single day. Not all of them even anymore even make the news. And retail outlets, 50% of active shooting incidents occur in retail. Walmart's been targeted in the past. There was one in Texas that was a chain or a outside mall. The name's escaping me right now, but YouTube headquarters, UPS, Buffalo Supermarket, the list goes on and on. And threats or shooting incidents don't discriminate based at all on location. They can happen anywhere at any time. And this leads me to a fact and a statement that there's a methodology that a lot of places follow, and it's called run, hide, fight. Run, hide, fight method, in my opinion, is outdated. It doesn't work anymore. We've been teaching it for years, and while it was a step forward in its time when it was developed, it's reactive, it's incomplete, and in many cases, it can be dangerous to the individual who follows that. Because in the real world, when a threat shows up at a school, at your workplace, at your office, in a public space that you're in, your community, people don't freeze because they didn't memorize the steps. Run, hide, fight was designed to be able to do this. You run, you hide, you fight. It's very linear. They freeze because they weren't trained to think clearly. They freeze because they weren't trained to think fast. They freeze because they weren't trained to lead themselves and others through a chaotic situation. And that's exactly what we do when we created our ACT model, ACTD, assess, commit, take action, and debrief. And so today, as part of this special podcast, I want to walk you through the key differences between assess, commit, take action, and debrief, and run, hide, fight. And more importantly, why your safety plan might be built on a shaky foundation if you're still relying on old models. I'm going to share how ACT is proactive instead of reactive. I'm going to share how it's designed for everyday people, not just tactical experts. I'm going to share why and how it's built around mindset and include some of the things that Run, Hide, Fight forgets, and that's the recovery aspect. This is a conversation that could save lives within your organization, for individuals, for their families, whoever it may be. So whether you're in education, healthcare, human resources, law enforcement, retail, if you're just a parent, you're a professional, and you want to feel more prepared, calm, and in control, this episode of Shield the Vulnerable is for you. So let's dive in. If you are an organization and you're using Run, Hide, Fight as your model to active shooter response or active threats, you are still probably further ahead than most companies who are unprepared and not using anything. Okay. But what if I told you that Run, Hide, Fight could be exposing you or your team to greater danger? Okay. 100% using it, it's better than nothing. But it depends on what is being taught with it to help support it. Most people like Run, Hide, Fight because it's simple and easy to use. Like I said earlier, it's also very linear. Okay. Run. Where do I run to? If you don't do a proper assessment, are you running towards more threats? If I hide, where do I hide? If we don't teach people how to properly go into lockdown or lockout, and you're just hiding under a desk or behind an object that leaves you no way out, you're exposing yourself to danger. Fight. How do I fight? Most people don't identify themselves as fighters. Therefore, they won't fight, and they're going to freeze when the time comes. So let's explore a new way, a modern approach that works. This is Run, Hide, Fight, and ACT. Run, Hide, Fight starts when the threat is already in progress, but ACT starts before that with awareness. ACT teaches people to identify and assess potential threats before they begin. ACT helps you assess behavioral signs and triggers before a threat actually occurs. Okay. It trains and teaches employees and individuals to catch red flags. We teach people to identify multiple risk factors like a history of violence or behavioral cues like aggression or erratic behavior or what escalating behavior looks like. What does impulsive or premeditated behavior look like? So often when an active threat or an active shooter situation happens, the response is often, well, I never saw it coming. I can't believe that Dave did that. I never would have thought Dave was that person. But the signs were there. And this is what we need to start to watch for and what we teach, helping individuals, organizations pick up on those small cues that can point them in the direction of maybe there's something here that we need to monitor. Okay. Our model focuses on building mental preparedness, not just physical responses to a threat. Run, Hide, Fight, again, better than nothing, but it focuses on what to do in the moment. Our assess, commit, take action model develops people how to think in the moment. Those assess and commit phases teach people to override panic, avoid freeze responses, which is a very normal physiological response that your body goes through, and how to make faster decisions. Okay. You need to be mentally ready, though, to override this system. And here's a really good example. In 2015, there was a kosher supermarket deli in Paris where there was an active shooter event that occurred. And internal video from that incident shows multiple responses. There was an individual who armed themselves with a bottle of wine, prepared to defend themselves or others. And then there was an individual who lied down in the aisle and they lost their life because they were there and they froze. Their body didn't know how to react. And in most active shooter situations, anytime where it's been uncovered or seen that an individual plays dead or just lies down, the goal of an active shooter is to kill as many people as possible. So even if you're laying there on the ground wounded or dead already, oftentimes they will continue to shoot to ensure that somebody has been killed. So when you hesitate during an active threat or an active shooter event, that decision paralysis due to lack of mental conditioning can occur. And so practicing safety, it doesn't need to be a fear-driven response. But if we focus on making what's called safety as a habit, the shift is easy to make. Safety is a habit. That's huge. Being able to build that in and know how you're going to respond. If this happens, this is what I'm going to do. And our model is designed for everybody. You don't just have to be a security expert. I've heard from others who have been taught run, hide, fight that after the training is done, it feels tactical. It feels intimidating. It's very physical. It was taught using fear-based methods and trying to drive up that emotion through simulated scenarios, leaving learners feeling very stressed out. I 100% get the need to tie that emotion to training, but it doesn't work for a lot of people. And so we designed our active threat, active shooter response training to work for, it doesn't matter whether you're a teacher or a student, an office worker, healthcare staff, an event coordinating staff, just an individual, okay, regardless of fitness level or prior training. We teach through a trauma-informed approach that leaves learners feeling more empowered to respond and not feeling stressed out at the end of it, okay? And the commit phase is something that's a missing link in most trainings. Most models, whether it's run, hide, fight, or others, they go right into that action stage if somebody believes that there's a threat. Often what happens, though, is individuals wait to see what somebody else's response is before deciding to respond themselves. And it's a natural reaction called denial. Most people want to deny what their senses are telling them is not real. Okay, we've got our 5 senses. And if we see something, if we hear something, if we smell something, fire, smoke, whatever it may be, okay, if we touch something, okay, it doesn't matter what sense it is, our body wants to deny, or our brain wants to deny what it is that we're perceiving. Oh, it can't be that there's a threat. It can't be that I just heard gunshots. It can't be that there was just an explosion. It can't be that a vehicle was just driven through a crowd. It can't be that somebody's acting this way. And so we wait to see how somebody else responds to it before we make a decision. And we reverse that. We acknowledge that psychological gap that is there. And we help people that, when people know what to do, but they hesitate, we help teach that in our commitment stage. And it's about mindset, decisiveness, and trust in your training. And we train people to move with purpose. We train people to help make a decision with purpose. Okay. The first decision that somebody makes is the decision that could save your life. And if you are stuck in that analysis paralysis where you don't decide, that could be the difference between going home safe or not when something happens. Okay. We teach a lockdown and lockout method. We teach how to evacuate, and we teach how to defend yourself. And this is called LED, LLED, and it's part of our take action stage. As I said before, run, hide, fight, it's very linear. Run, hide, fight, run, hide, fight. If individuals finally believe there's a threat, their response is then linear. Okay, run. I can't run. I don't know how. Where do I go to? Where do I run to? Am I running towards more danger or am I running away from danger? Is there multiple threats that I have to consider? Okay. Hide. Where do I hide? Oh, it's too late to hide. I couldn't find a good hiding spot. Okay. It's like, this isn't hide and go seek where you got 60 seconds to count, ready or not, here I come. You have a moment to decide what it is that you're going to do. And then if you haven't, and you're caught face to face with that threat, you're left with fight. And most people say, I'm not a fighter, I don't know how. And so they freeze. So we help organizations, we help individuals build a lockout response. So a lockout response is if a threat is outside of your building. It's at a neighboring business. It's at a park nearby. It's wherever. We teach you how to go into lockdown, which can be coupled with, we teach you how to go into lockout, which can be coupled with lockdown. Okay. A lockdown, though, is immediate actions if a threat is inside. And during that lockdown stage, it's understanding where and how to hide if you need to protect yourself. We teach you how to evacuate safely, evacuate, not run, and how to find places of cover or concealment. And if you are ever faced with a threat, how to actually defend yourself. Okay? It is an evolutionary framework, and it's not that you just begin with one option, and if that option doesn't work, or I'm going to go to the next one. Okay? We teach you that this is a cyclical thing, and your decision making may change as the more information that you gather changes. You may initially go into lockdown because you don't have a chance to evacuate. But then once in lockdown, the situation changes and you say, now is the time to evacuate. You may begin evacuating, go, that's not going to work anymore, and I need to go into lockdown. Okay? Whatever you choose doesn't mean that you're stuck with that decision the whole way through. Okay? And psychologically, like I said, if you ask people if you're a fighter, they would say no. But if you ask, could you defend yourself if you were taught how and given the tools to do so, or given the way and the mental resiliency to think about this, could you do it? Most people are going to say yes. Okay. I want to pause here for a moment, because if what we're talking about is starting to hit home for you, it's probably time to take the next step. Whether you're a school, a business, a health care organization, a public events coordinator, community leader, it doesn't matter. Your team deserves more than outdated checklists. They deserve more than a one-time training seminar. We're going to talk more about that later. Our model isn't just theory. It's an action-ready training system that's been built for today's world. It's proactive, it's trauma-informed, and designed to empower real people, not just security professionals, not just school resource officers, not just law enforcement, not just people with training, okay? If you want to bring our ACT training, our assess or a threat assessment and active shooter training into your organization, click the link in the show notes to schedule a quick strategy call. You can send me an email, dave@pursuitpathways.com, or you can find me on LinkedIn, Dave Miller, and pursuitpathways.com. And we're going to walk you through your current safety plan and show you how exactly ACT can close the gaps that you may have within your organization. Because doing nothing is not an option anymore. Doing nothing is not an option. Okay. Debriefing. This is something that's often missed, and it's critical. It can't be an option. The run, hide, fight, it ends at fight. And there's no training to help organizations continue on with that emotional debrief, helping organizations and helping individuals recover, improve, and to help them heal. Using a critical incident response debrief is imperative, and it supports trauma mitigation, and it gives you legal and HR documentation that you need. A critical incident stress debriefing can help prevent long-term PTSD symptoms, anxiety, fear, and lead to healthy and strong work cultures. And it does not take a major incident. It doesn't have to be an active shooter incident. If an angry customer comes into a building, or an angry patient, or an angry student, or an angry parent, it doesn't matter, and screams and yells and berates and pounds the desks, and it causes somebody an emotional response, as an organization, you should be offering them the opportunity to debrief and help understand what happened and give them the support tools to be able to recover and become a long-term, valuable, contributing employee to your company. Okay? Assess, commit, take action. Debrief. It promotes role-based responsibility. So instead of generic steps, ACT helps schools, businesses, and facilities assign clear roles. Who assesses? Who communicates? Who makes a decision? Who helps support others? Who helps support vulnerable individuals within your company to be able to go through the equal steps of lockdown, lockout, evacuate, and defend? Okay. ACT helps bring clarity to chaos. Okay. Having a prepared policy and procedure in place is critical in times of stress. But we go beyond that, helping you identify and put all of that into place so those who can will rise to the occasion. Okay? Those who can will rise to the occasion, and they will help carry your organization forward. Some people just innately are built this way, and when shit hits the fan, they're ready to step up and be there. And that's often what carries people through. Remember, I talked earlier about denial. When an organization has somebody who is not stuck in denial and they can make a quick decision, other people follow suit. Okay? It's social proof. If Dave's doing something because he perceives there's a dangerous situation and I trust Dave, I'm going to act and behave the same way, and I take quicker action. Okay? There's a lot of studies that show this happening and that people look for social proof. So we can help you identify those in your organizations who are ready and willing and able to step up and rise to that occasion. Our model adapts to multiple threats. It's not just about active shooters. Run, hide, fight is often taught specific to active shooter situations, but ACT prepares people for any type of violent situation, any type of higher level threat. Okay. It doesn't matter whether it's a knife attack, a bat, workplace violence, targeted harassment. Okay. We teach people how to respond. The last thing we want to do is say, this is active shooter training, active shooter training, active shooter training. Oh crap, that person's got a knife. What do I do? Okay. And the wires don't cross in your brain on how to respond to it. Okay. That's what we break away from here. Okay. And it transfers outside of the workplace into every single day environments, because the possibility of violence doesn't just stop at the front doors of somebody's work. Okay. Again, I want you to think about incidents like New Orleans, January 2025, Boston Marathon bombing. Okay. Now, this is not to say at all that everyone could have been prepared. Unfortunately, there is such a thing as wrong time, wrong place. But what if you were in these places and with just a little bit more awareness and you were a little bit more prepared? And perhaps you can lean into that intuition and you can protect yourself or your family. Maybe you notice something's off when you're in a retail facility or a restaurant or a public venue or a concert. Okay. Now, it's not your job to evacuate an entire building, but perhaps you can alert security or an employee to an issue, and then you can choose to remove yourself altogether. That singular decision right there may be enough to save your life or the lives of others. I recently had a conversation with an organization who has very high level security outside of their building for people to get into the building. And they're like, no, Dave, we'd never have an active threat or active shooter situation. Nobody can get into our building except for employees. And I just asked them, like, what happens if the active threat or the active shooter is an employee? What happens if they've been planning it for the last several weeks or several months, a year even? And they've slowly been bringing in the pieces that they need to carry out what it is that they want to do. Don't just assume that active threats only happen in one area and that your organization is completely okay. Like I said at the start, I challenge you to not wait until something happens to fix this. I challenge you to think forward and go, how can we prepare for this now and help protect our people? Okay. And I'm not a big believer in just saying, hey, we're going to bring in Pursuit Pathways or Dave, and we're going to do this seminar, because people miss seminars. People are on holidays. People call in sick. People are off on leave. Okay. Or for those that do attend, they leave, they forget. The learning outcomes are short-lived. Now, if that's all you can do, it's much better than doing nothing. But setting up a plan to provide continued support and education and the policies to support it can be the difference between a successful outcome in a threatening situation or not. Okay. It's about empowerment, not fear. Okay. Other models, they can instill fear in their training. But we can instill readiness, calm, confidence. Okay. We don't train people to survive. We train them to lead themselves and others through a crisis. And there's a story, it goes back to the World Trade Centers, and a man named Rick Rescorla. He ultimately ended up working for a company, Morgan Stanley, which occupied, I think, 22 floors in the World Trade Center. And Rick was often known with his organization or with his employees for running impromptu 15-minute fire drills. And management would huff and puff. You're taking up time, our people don't need to be practicing this. But Rick had already been involved in when there was the 1993 bombing at the World Trade Center. And he had actually, through a threat assessment, identified the World Trade Centers as a high threat. He had actually, I think, made a recommendation that Morgan Stanley move from the World Trade Center. They were the largest occupier tenant in the World Trade Center at the time of the attacks. And so Rick would get his walkie-talkie, get his bullhorn, get his whistle, and he would run impromptu 15-minute training sessions, and he would help people coordinate these active, proactive steps. And come the day that the World Trade Centers were attacked, first of all, PA system announcements came in telling everybody to stay put. You don't need to move. Everything's going to be okay, which can be part of that denial phase and stage. And Rick did not. He gathered up all his tools, went right back to the training, which his employees knew how to do. And he effectively escorted 22 floors of Morgan Stanley out, saving like 2,000, maybe even 3,000 lives because of his actions and his preparedness. Now, I'm not saying that you need to be running 15-minute drills every week, every month. Okay. But I want you to start considering how your organization and how you think about training and preparation, and ask yourself, if this happened, would we be prepared? What is the cost of training versus the cost on loss of life? Okay. So I want to recap this. Run, hide, fight. It tells us what to do. It's better than nothing. And if that's all your organization can do is tell your people run, hide, fight, that's awesome. It's better than nothing. But our model trains you and your team how to think and how to respond. It gives you awareness before a threat occurs. It gives you decisiveness during an active threat situation. It gives you recovery after a threat. And in a world where hesitation can cost lives, that is the difference. Making that decision. So if this episode of Shield the Vulnerable, brought to you by Pursuit Pathways, opened your eyes or gave you clarity that you've been searching for, I want you to please share this with a colleague, a leader, your HR team, your management team. Okay. This is how we begin to build cultures of preparedness. And if you want to explore how our active threat, active shooter training, and our ACT model can fit into your organization, your business, your school, your workplace, your healthcare facility, let's talk. You can message me directly through LinkedIn, Dave Miller and Pursuit Pathways, or please drop me an email, dave@pursuitpathways.com. So until next time, please stay aware, stay ready, and always remember, prepared people protect people. It's been another episode of Shield the Vulnerable, Untold Stories. Thank you.